welcome. My name is Joseph W. Smith III. Call me Joe, please. And welcome to the inaugural edition of North Central Cinema. We'll be getting together here about twice a month to discuss movies, old and new. I've been reviewing films now for about 45 years. And my specialty is under-the-radar movies, ones that they're not blockbusters, kind of behind-the-scenes type things. And as you may have noticed, we have a holiday theme for this inaugural edition. So we're going to be doing under-the-radar holiday movies. Yes, so go ahead and watch It's a Wonderful Life, and Home Alone, or Christmas Carol, or whatever your other seasonal favorites are. But today I'm going to give you four that are just a bit lesser known. And we'll start right out with this one here, which is The Holiday. Just take a look at that. If you haven't seen this film, you might notice Kate Winslet, Jack Black, Jude Law, and Cameron Diaz. So I assume that I have your interest now. That's a pretty good cast. And to that you can add Rufus Sewell. And also Edward Norton has a small part. And Golden Age stalwart Eli Wallach. He's been around so long that he was one of the major characters in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He's 90 in this film, and he kills it in his relatively modest-sized role there. The Holiday is a rom-com. It's about women who have been burned by men. That's Winslet and Diaz, and they live on opposite sides of the globe, London and L.A., so they decide to exchange homes one winter to get away from guy problems. Fortunately for viewers, this fails spectacularly. Winslet meets Black, Diaz meets Jude Law, and things go from there. Another special thing about The Holiday is it was written and directed by Nancy Meyers, who had a lot of success early in her career with What Women Want, the Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap, which is a terrific movie, Something's Gotta Give, another great movie. The Holiday is very funny, but also packs an incredible emotional wallop. The scene with Sophie and Olivia in their tent, that's all I'm going to say. Good luck getting through that without a hanky. So for this one, put it under your Christmas tree or maybe under your mistletoe. A slightly more recent film from just a couple years ago is Last Christmas. Again, a little under the radar. I just mentioned this to my sister, who's an 80s music fan and a film lover, and she had not heard of it. Again, it's another rom-com, and it's set in London, and it's geared to the music of George Michael, as you may have guessed from the title. There's even a new song by Michael in the closing credits. If you always sit through the closing credits, there's always something cool there. Last Christmas has Emilia Clarke of Game of Thrones, and she plays a sort of a train wreck of a young woman who works at a year-round Christmas store. Fortunately, she's got a terrible self-destructive streak, but there are people in her life who want to help her out. Michelle Yeoh plays the store owner. Emma Thompson plays her somewhat overbearing but still loving mother. And then she meets a very handsome guy played by the very handsome Henry Golding, who is in Crazy Rich Asians. And I won't tell you too much more about that, except that this guy she meets seems almost too good to be true. And not only is he selflessly willing to help her out, but he's one of those few guys in a rom-com that is not anxious to hop into bed on the first or second or even third date. Last Christmas is not a great film, but it is a good one. It's partly good because it was written by Emma Thompson, who is in it. She is, by the way, the only person who ever has scored an Oscar for both acting and writing. She won Best Actress for Howard's End, and then a couple of years later she won Best Screenplay for Sense and Sensibility. So there's Last Christmas. Now, those two films are kind of for grown-ups, especially The Holiday is pretty risque. I wouldn't necessarily recommend hauling your 10 and 11-year-old out and watching it with them around the fire or something. So here's a couple of films that are a little more family-friendly. Kind of an older film, The Bishop's Wife. Pretty popular in its time, probably pretty well known to folks who are my age or a bit older. It's kind of a neglected second cousin to It's a Wonderful Life. It was made about the same time. It has an angel theme, a Christmas theme, and it even shares two actors with It's a Wonderful Life. Bobby Anderson, who played young George Bailey, you'll recognize him right away, and the wonderful Carolyn Grimes, who played Zuzu in It's a Wonderful Life. They're both in The Bishop's Wife, but the best thing about it is it stars Cary Grant, possibly the greatest actor of the golden age of cinema. If you have not seen a Cary Grant movie, this is a good place to start. Grant plays an angel. Now, if you know, he's got this sort of suave and very debonair and cool and collected persona. And I had a hard time picturing him playing an angel. And in fact, originally they had cast him in the human role, which is actually played by David Niven in the film. But Grant said he wanted to play the angel, and he just knocks it out of the park. He really underplays it. He's very, very tender and calm. I came to this film late, only had seen it for the first time last year, and immediately fell in love with it. I recommend it. He plays an angel, by the way, who comes to help a struggling Manhattan pastor whose family is falling apart because this pastor is just too obsessed with building a new cathedral. So he needs the angel to come and help him rearrange his priorities. Carolyn Grimes, by the way, is still with us. She is 81. And fortunately, this film is still with us too, The Bishop's Wife. Now let's be honest, as we wind this down here, I've got one more film for you. Most of your kids are not going to want to sit around and watch a 74-year-old black and white movie. So here's one that's even family friendlier, although it's a little bit tougher to see because it is only available on Netflix. It's animated. It's called Klaus, K-L-A-U-S. You might think Klaus, but all the publicity material tells us to pronounce it as Klaus. My only word for this film is that it's original. Not only is it a Netflix original, not only does it look original because it's hand-drawn. When was the last time you saw a hand-drawn animated feature and it looks just gorgeous? But also it is a Santa Claus origin story. The plot has this sort of hapless 20-something kid, and his father just can't get him onto a career track now. His father works for the post office, so he sends the young man off to this remote northern European island called Smeerenburg to open a post office. And he expects to get there and find everyone dying to send letters to each other. Instead, he finds that this is the home of the world's finest feuds, he finds. And he's trying to navigate all this. He also finds that there's a reclusive old man who lives on the edge of town and no one trusts him. Somehow from this bizarre storyline emerges all of the associations with Santa Claus. The sleigh, the notes, the reindeer, the chimney, the coal, the stockings, even the naughty list. You've probably never seen a film like this. Voicing, by the way, by Jason Schwartzman, J.K. Simmons, and Rashida Jones. It has a 94 at Rotten Tomatoes, which is a very good sign, and a whopping 8.2 at the Internet Movie Database. It's tough to score a number that high at the picky Internet Movie Database, but that's a solid film, Klaus. Now, if you're interested in under-the-radar movies in general, may I recommend my movie book on under-the-radar movies, which is called The Best Movies You Never Saw. And by the way, a couple of these films are in here. It's 300 entries. Most of them are about a page long, and they're under-the-radar movies that somehow they're not blockbusters, they somehow didn't make it. So, a great Christmas gift this year, readily available at Amazon. Now, we'll be back with North Central Cinema, more under-the-radar movies, or occasionally we'll just do a brand new movie that's in theaters. If you have something you'd like to talk about, or you just want to argue about movies, write to me. I'm available at robbwhitefan at Gmail. That's R-O-B-B, and then the words white and fan at gmail.com. Now for North Central Cinema, this is Joe Smith saying Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
At UPMC, we're pioneering new ways to treat cancer, and we're working to prevent it. We're advancing new technology to look more closely at disease and helping you breathe easier. We perform the world's first heart-liver transplant, and we're experts at keeping your heart beating strong. We're a global team of more than 90,000, advancing care everywhere and delivering it closer to you. UPMC, life-changing medicine.